rabbis asked the following famous question. If bait represents the letter of connection or relationship, why didn't God take the letter bait and make it open towards or facing the goal of what you're here to connect to? Okay? If we say the letter Aleph represents God's oneness and bait is connection or relationship, why couldn't God take the bait and make it facing the goal, the Aleph? I'm here to connect to God's oneness. Good is that which connects me, evil is that which distances me. So the bait of connection should have its opening towards the goal. Instead, God graphically designed the bait with its back to the goal, as if it's facing the wrong direction. So why did God prefer the letter of connection relationship not facing what you're here to connect to? And that's a representation of his oneness. So the answer to that goes back to a dream, a prophetic dream that was given to Jacob, who we're going to call Yaakov, when he stole the blessings from his twin brother Esau. Okay? So he steals the blessings from his twin brother. His twin brother Esau says, I'm going to kill him. Let's just put our genealogy up here. We have Abraham, who's the founder of the Jewish people, has a son named Isaac, who we're going to call Yitzchak. And Yitzchak has a son named Yaakov. And Yaakov has a twin brother named Esau. And Esau's a pretty evil guy. Yaakov steals the blessings from his twin brother because Esau was slightly older. And Esau says, I'm going to kill him. Yaakov flees out of the land of Israel. And on his way out of the land of Israel, he lays down to sleep on a hill where decades earlier his grandfather tried to sacrifice his father. And 1,000 years in the future, the temple will be built in Jerusalem. At this stage in history, it's just a hill. So here's the hill. Here's Yaakov laying down to sleep. And he has a prophetic dream. God gives him a dream in prophecy. And that dream is each layer of the dream, each successive layer is deeper than the one before. It's introduced by a Hebrew word named hine. Familiar with the word hine? Well, hine is usually translated by the English editors as behold. And in English, behold is a throwaway word. In other words, you don't really need it. Like in Shakespeare, behold, Hamlet approaches, or something like that. I could just say Hamlet approaches. But there's no throwaway words in the Torah, and therefore every word has to have a deeper significance. So hine is used almost like a code word in the Torah for the idea that if you look deeper, I'll show you something you didn't see before. So Yaakov lays down to sleep, and the first hine in the dream is there's a ladder. This is a famous dream of Yaakov's ladder, and there's a ladder from heaven heading down to earth. And hine, there's a ladder, meaning God's saying to Yaakov, look deeper and you'll see you didn't lay down to sleep on any hill. This is a hill which has a connection between heaven and earth, because ladders imply your ability to span two locations. So the only hill anywhere on the planet which by the Torah is described as being a ladder from heaven and earth is this hill right here. In other words, there's no hill with a ladder in Egypt, even though we spent hundreds of years there, or Babylonia, even though we spent centuries there. So this must be where heaven and earth connect. Meaning, when you pray in New York, that spiritual flow of whatever it is you're talking to God about is not traveling up from New York into the spiritual realm. That's what most people would think. It's actually traveling to the land of Israel and up from here, because the connection point is here over Jerusalem and not over Manhattan or whatever the case may be. And whatever spiritual response comes down here, travels out of the land of Israel and back to New York. Okay, that's what the first hine is. Look deeper and you'll see this is not just any hill. That's probably, makes it easy to conclude that Abraham was asked to sacrifice Isaac there, because that's where heaven and earth connect. Then there's another hine, and the next hine is look deeper and you'll see it's not a place of potential connection, because that's what the letter implies. No, the next thing in the dream, are you familiar with the story? The next hine in the dream, look deeper, and what's on the ladder, do you remember? No. Angels. Angels are going up and down the ladder. That's the next, look deeper and you'll see it's not a place of potential connection. There's actual flow back and forth. Angels represent spiritual flow. As a matter of fact, the way to understand angels in Judaism is not the way other religions understand them. They pretty much distorted the idea, but angels are like puppets. Angels are spiritual forces God wills into existence to carry out his will. They do not have an independent will. It's almost like, I put on a hand puppet, and I call my hand puppet Frank, and I say, hey, Frank, turn on the light for me. He says, sure, Rabbi Marcus, I'll be right back. And he goes and flicks on the light and says, will there be anything else? I say, no, that's fine. So who flicked on the light? Me. Who did I want you to think flicked on the light? Frank. So Frank is something I created to carry out my will, but Frank can't go against me. So angels are spiritual forces. In other words, if you pretend God's here, and every physical, chemical, and biological process in the universe has a spiritual basis to it, then if you could see what God willing that process to exist or to function looks like, that will would be called what we call an angel. So therefore, every process in biology or physics or chemistry has a spiritual basis. God runs the universe by willing forces to carry out his will for 99.999% of whatever it needs. I don't know if in high school they still make high school students memorize every step of the Krebs citric acid cycle of photosynthesis. Did you have to do this in high school? Oh my gosh, I hope they're having mercy on the students, but I had to memorize every step of the Krebs citric acid cycle where a photon of light is absorbed by ADP and becomes ATP. I mean, like, whatever. Anyway, so according to Judaism, every step has a spiritual basis. But it's just God willing it into existence so that it functions indirectly as opposed to directly. Now, you're thinking, well, that's silly. God's doing everything himself anyway. If it's just his will, why is he creating it as an intermediary stage as opposed to just doing it himself? Because ultimately it is him. And the answer is because just like he hides himself behind physics, chemistry, and biology so that you can go through the physical world and decide there is no God and be an atheist, so too he hides himself spiritually to create intermediary stages or spiritual systems to carry out his will so that he's hidden in the spiritual realm. If you and I were more spiritually sensitive or perceptive or capable of prophecy, let's say, we'd see layering and therefore not be able to connect back to God so easily or directly in the spiritual realm as well. You follow? So it's all a series of layers. That's why it's so significant when God says, I did this and not an angel. Like in the Passover story, which we read the night of the Seder, we read that God says, I took you out of the land of Egypt on that night. I am not an angel. I killed the firstborn. I am not a messenger. So God says it was me, which is extremely rare historically, where God did not use an intermediary system, instead did it directly himself. And that's because, there were reasons for that. But anyway, so therefore we've got this intermediary system of God using to run the world. Now, anyone who knows anything about angels knows that if we put God up metaphorically, even though God's everywhere. So let's say heaven has lots of levels in it, which it does, each level subdivided. So you get thousands of levels of the spiritual realm. And we'll call this the bottom level of the spiritual realm right here. And we'll call this our universe with its billions of galaxies. Each galaxy has billions of stars. And here's a human being down here on the planet Earth. Okay, so now, anyone who knows anything about angels knows that they are spiritual forces that God wills into existence to carry out his will. So in terms of graphing them, we would call them forces to carry out friction, gravity, weather, physics, chemistry, biology, all those things. And therefore, God would send them down to do whatever it is our world needed doing. And then when they were done, they would go back, which means the angels in the dream are going backwards. Angels aren't physical world creations that go to the spiritual realm. They're spiritual creations that come down to our world. Since we take the Torah very literally, at least in this particular section, if this is a prophetic dream, then God should have shown the angels going down and coming up. Instead, he showed them going up and coming down, which is backwards. So the question is, why would God show Yaakov, Jacob, the spiritual realm in a prophecy running backwards? And I think that's what we'll continue with next time. Just remind me, when we continue, we'll do why that whole whole system of angels is going the wrong way. Okay, we'll stop over here.